Greetings and welcome to the Bowling Green First United Methodist Church. We hope that you enjoy what you're about to see, and you can find us on the corner of Broadway and Church Streets at 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings. Or you can find us at bgmethodist.org and on Facebook at Bowling Green First United Methodist Church. And thanks be to Tom for getting all those names this morning and not putting in the stalactites and the stalagmites and the termites and all the other ites in there as we went along. So this morning, I was going to start in one place for this message, and we're going to go one direction with it. That's what I had planned. But sometimes the events of the week kind of say, well, maybe you need to kind of change that just a little bit. And that's what happened as I went through this week. I don't know how much you all pay attention to what's going on in the larger part of our Methodist Church, but there was some news that came out this week that is kind of dictating the course that we are taking. And so I thought, well, part of that I need to bring you all up to speed on that, but then it also fits though with where we were going with this message as well. And it started off that we are, like many of our other brothers and sisters in other denominations, have been struggling through what to do with issues that surround human sexuality. It's been a challenge for us. And this is not a new challenge for us. We have been working on this since about 1968 when we became the United Methodist Church. It's been coming up every 4 years at our general conference, and it's been discussed at length many different times. It has been something we have been struggling with for the last 40 years. But in recent years, we have begun to set in place a movement for figuring out what we are going to be doing next. And so, kind of where we are is that earlier this week, the Council of Bishops, they are made up of all of our bishops. They called a special session of General Conference to meet in February of 2016, and they're going to be meeting down in St. Louis. Our conference, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but somewhat not, they sent out a statement and said, if they would have talked to us a little bit more about this, we might have said February in Missouri may not be the greatest of times to try and plan a big event, but that's what, for a lot of reasons, they chose St. Louis for that. And that's for General Conference. Remember, General Conference is our big legislative body for the denomination. They're the ones that make our church law and church policies, and they meet every 4 years. Like any big institutions, we have lots of different levels and branches of government that we have inside of our church, and many of which that have an equivalent inside of our state and federal governments also. And so they called together General Conference, and they set it for 2016. Now what they're doing is, last year, there was a plan that came out of our regularly scheduled General Conference that said the bishops were charged with the task. Their task was to figure out, what do we do? And so they put together a commission made up of folks from all sides of the issue, and said, your job is not to figure out the church's official stance on this. Because right now as it stands, we disagree a lot. We've watched as everyone else around us has put an official church stance on this, and it really hasn't worked well for anyone. They said, they recognized and they said, we are going to disagree on this issue, and that's not something that we are probably going to solve. But maybe we can still be church. That became the deciding factor. We can still be church together even in the midst of our disagreements. And so this commission is called A Way Forward, and their job is to figure out how we still be the church, even though we've got folks that disagree on all sides of this issue, and that probably is not going to be overcome. And so they called for a special called session of General Conference, and now everything is being put in motion for that to happen, and that's when they will make their big decision coming out of that special session in February of 2019. Either we will have a path forward in figuring out how we're going to do this, or our denomination is probably going to split. That's That's where that decision stands right now. That was one of two announcements, or two events that happened in this last week. The other is that our judicial council met on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And they are kind of like the equivalent of the Supreme Court. They don't make law or policy, but they interpret it and they understand it. They're the ones that, when things come up, the decisions have to be made on how it's applied. They're the ones that get that job. And so what had happened was, last year, the South Central jurisdiction, that covers like Missouri and Arkansas and Texas and some other states a little bit farther south of us in the central part of the nation. We're a part of the South Central jurisdiction. And a jurisdiction is kind of like a state. Our jurisdiction made a complaint to the Western jurisdiction that covers California, Oregon, Washington, and all the way over to Colorado. Made a complaint to them because last year the Western jurisdiction elected Bishop Karen Oliveto to being a bishop. Bishop Oliveto is a gay woman who is married according to the law of her home state, and that is contrary, as the complaint goes, to our Book of Discipline. And so now we have this coming up, and so they were trying to figure out how we do this. Now the thing to remember is that any time we use the Book of Discipline or a book of laws or rules, whether we're talking about church or government or wherever, is that we've got to remember that those laws don't only apply when it agrees with us. And that was kind of the essence of the decision that came out this last week. Friday night, they posted their decision, and it's got two parts to it. The first part is that they said that the complaint that was made about Bishop Oliveto's election and consecration as bishop, that was an improper complaint to come from the South Central jurisdiction, because our laws and our Constitution is set up that jurisdictions can't make that choice for another jurisdiction. And there's a long history behind that at some point in the future, if you have questions, I can tell you more about why that is. They said that part of it is improper, but on the other side of it, they said there is an issue, though, here with Bishop Oliveto, that she seems to be in some way in violation of the Book of Discipline, and they laid out kind of something of a review process for her. Now, the place where all this hinges is that review process, because there are a couple of things that are making its way through the Western jurisdiction now, is going to take a long time, and probably past 2019, when we have that special session of general conferences called, and they're going to make a determination on how things are going to work, and how, if possible, that we are going to live together, even with some fairly significant differences in interpretation and belief and all of those things. And so that's kind of where things are, as we are waiting now for 2019, when our legislative body gathers together and makes new church law, new church policies and rules and all of those things. And so we're left with this question of, well, what do we do? What do we do in the meantime with all of this? Many of you know, I was at a meeting in Ohio this week. I am just started a 4-year stint on the board of directors for the United Methodist Rural Advocates. And we're an advocacy group that supports rural churches and rural communities, and does a lot of work, especially on the denominational level, of trying to help out our rural churches. And we started meeting on Wednesday, and we got into Thursday, and we were talking about a lot of different things, and we knew the announcement had been made about 2019, and we knew this judicial council review was coming up, and about Thursday afternoon, we got stuck. Y'all ever been in one of those meetings where you're talking about a lot of things, but you get to a certain point and you're spinning your wheels and you're just kind of stuck, you can't go anywhere anymore? But we were sitting there and things were getting a little bit tense, because that's generally what happens next when you're stuck. People start to get tense, and one of our guys sitting around the table, he stepped back and he said, you know what we haven't done for a while? We haven't stopped to pray about this. We're a room full of preachers, and we're sitting there, and he says that, and we all look at Doug and we go, you're right. And so we stopped for a little while. Or as one way I've heard this put before, folks were telling me a story about they were on a board with another gentleman who would stop them every once in a while and say, "Now it's time for a word from our sponsor." And that was what he did. He stopped us to pray, to stop, to reflect, to give space for God, for us to listen to God speaking. And we did. We stopped for a while and we listened. And it was amazing. We came back and all of a sudden we could get all sorts of things done. We found our purpose and our direction again. And this is what we see Moses doing. Moses is in the middle of this. Moses has left Egypt. He is a wanted man in Egypt, so he has gone from there. He's been effectively exiled out of there. He has found a new life in Midian. He is married. He is starting a family. He's got a good job. He's got good job prospects for the future. He is safe and he is secure. He's got a good life. It's going to be a hard life, but it's going to be a good life that he is going to have in Midian. But he's kind of aimless and purposeless. There's not a lot of direction that he has while he is there until one day when he comes up and he sees a burning bush. And he sees this burning bush and it begins to speak to him and says, and he knows that it's God's voice, and God is saying to Moses, "I want you to go and do something. I want you to go and free my people out of slavery in Egypt. That is going to be your job going on from here on out." And Moses, of course, is a little bit taken aback by that. And he says, "Well, what am I supposed to do with that? I don't know how to do that. Because who do I tell them is sending me to do this?" And this is when God responds back to him. He says, "I am who I am, or I will be who I will be. So say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you." God continued, "Say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your ancestors, Abraham's God, Isaac's God, and Jacob's God has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is how all generations will remember me. I am that I am. And I am sending you to go and do this work." You know, it's interesting that when asked that question of who I am, we all would respond back with our names. Instead, God responds back with a verb. I don't know if he's trying to noun a verb or what he's doing. I'm not even sure if that's really a thing. But, he says this, "I am who I am." And verbs have action, they have meaning, they have life, they have vitality. And that is what God is saying. This is not something that is static and staying in one place, but God is saying, "I am life, I am vitality, I am very being itself, and I am sending you to go and do this work because it needs to be done. People need to be freed. The people need to be brought into this land that I'm going to prepare for them. This is your job to do." We didn't have a big dramatic burning bush moment because I'm not sure that the trustees of the West Ohio Conference would have appreciated it if we had had a bush catch fire in the middle of our meeting that we had inside of their building. But it was kind of that same experience, though, when we stopped and we listened and we said, "Okay, we have our direction again because God is leading us. We know that we are going to be the ones who are going to advocate for the rural church and rural communities, both on the denominational level, but also on the local church level, to provide resources and helps and trainings and all those things that will help our rural churches grow and thrive and survive, and most importantly, share the gospel with the folks that are around them." That is going to be our job. And so the job becomes then for us, or the question then becomes for us, then what is our burning bush? That was our burning bush moment. What is our burning bush as individuals and as a church that's going to give us that direction to go forward? What is God saying to us? What purpose is he giving to us to send us forward? Because so often the world looks like this. It looks kind of broken. It looks separate. It looks like it's going to have a hard time coming together. But then the burning bush happens, or that thing happens, that moment happens. It's a word from our sponsor or something that says, God is speaking and giving you purpose. And it begins to draw us together. To bridge that gap that is separating us, to draw us together, to give us purpose and forward motion so that we can live out who God intended us to be. So the question is, what is your burning bush? What is it that's going to take you forward? Because we can get caught up in all the things that are going on, kind of like we did earlier this week. But those things take on a new meaning when we find our focus, we find our purpose, and we can go forward from there. I invite you and us as a church as we go forward from here, we're going to spend time this summer and this fall as we start some small groups up around here and around the parish. But we're going to be looking for that burning bush. What is it that God is saying to us? We don't have to find it immediately, but we do need to start and continue in many ways the process of hearing what God is saying so that we can go forward and we can be the church in this community and in this place. And let us go and do all of this in Christ's name. Amen.